I used to think humiliation had a sound. Not yelling, not insults, but that quiet little laugh people make when they think you're beneath them, the kind they don't even realize they're doing. I heard that sound the day my boss told me in front of everyone that I should stay in my lane and stop pretending I was something more. And yeah, that happened. I smiled, nodded, went back to my desk, then cried in my car like a teenager who just got dumped. That was the day everything started, even though at the time it felt like the day I finally lost. Let me back up a little. My name's Alex Reed. At the time, I was a junior operations analyst at a logistics firm in downtown Chicago. Fancy title, low pay, even lower respect. I was the quiet one. The guy who stayed late, fixed problems no one noticed, and somehow still got talked over in every meeting. My boss, Grant Holloway, loved to remind me of that. Tall guy, perfect hair, MB. A. Confidence. The kind of man who never questioned whether he belonged in a room because the room always bent around him. Grant didn't yell. He didn't need to. He smiled while cutting you down. He'd say things like, "Let's hear from someone with more experience," right after I finished explaining something he didn't understand. Or, "That's a bit ambitious, Alex," which was code for "You're not smart enough for this." Everyone laughed nervously. No one challenged him. And I told myself to keep my head down. Work hard. Let results speak. You know the lie we all tell ourselves. The breaking point came during a quarterly review meeting. Big conference room. Executives in suits. Coffee that tasted like regret. I'd spent weeks building a model that showed we were bleeding money on a specific distribution route. Millions quietly disappearing. I had the numbers. Clean. Solid. I stood up, hands shaking just a little, and walked them through it. Grant didn't even let me finish. He leaned back, crossed his arms, and said, "This is what happens when you look at spreadsheets without understanding the real business." Then he turned to the room and added, "Alex is good with numbers, but strategy is not his strength." There it was, that laugh. Soft, dismissive. And the executives nodded because why wouldn't they? Grant was the authority. I was just the quiet guy in the corner. After the meeting, he pulled me aside, put a hand on my shoulder like we were friends. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice, "you're valuable, just not in that way. Stay in your lane." That night, sitting in my car, I realized something uncomfortable. If I stayed quiet, nothing would change. Not my career, not how people saw me, not how I saw myself. And if I spoke up the wrong way, I'd be labeled difficult. So I made a decision. I stopped trying to be liked. I started trying to be undeniable. I worked differently after that. Not louder. Sharper. I documented everything. Every ignored warning. Every overridden decision. I learned the parts of the business Grant pretended to understand. Contracts, vendor penalties, risk exposure. I talked to people no one ever talked to. Warehouse supervisors, drivers, compliance officers. I listened. I learned where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking, and I waited. The opportunity came 6 months later, disguised as a crisis. A major client threatened to pull out over delayed shipments and compliance violations. Panic everywhere. Emergency meetings. Executives suddenly open to new ideas. Grant was tasked with presenting a recovery plan to the board. The night before the board meeting, I sent Grant an email. Short, professional. I attached a report outlining the exact cause of the delays, the financial impact, and a step-by-step fix. The same route I'd warned about months earlier. I added one line at the end. "Happy to walk you through this if helpful." He didn't respond. The next morning, I was asked to join the board meeting just in case. I knew what that meant. Scapegoat. Backup. Silent observer. Grant started his presentation confidently. Too confidently. Slide 3 and a board member interrupted. "This doesn't explain the cost overruns." Grant hesitated. "Just a second." "Enough." Another board member asked, "Why wasn't this flagged earlier?" Grant cleared his throat. "We didn't have sufficient data at the time." That's when the CEO turned to me. "Alex, you worked on this route right." Every eye in the room shifted. My heart pounded. This was it. I could shrink, or I could step forward. Yes, I said, and actually I flagged it last quarter. I have the report if you'd like to see it. The room went very still. Grant shot me a look, not angry, afraid. I pulled up my file. Same model, same numbers, time-stamped emails, meeting notes. I explained calmly, no emotion, just facts. I showed how the losses started, how they grew, how they could be stopped. And then I said the thing I'd practiced 100 times in my head. This wasn't a lack of data. It was a decision not to act on it. No accusations, no raised voice, just truth. The board asked Grant to step out. He tried to protest. They didn't let him. When he came back, it was different. He didn't look tall anymore. 2 weeks later, Grant was reassigned. Not fired, not punished publicly, just moved somewhere he couldn't do damage. I was promoted, quietly. No applause, no big speech, but something else changed. People started listening. Here's the part that surprised me. Winning didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like relief, like standing up straight after years of hunching over, like finally hearing my own voice clearly. But it didn't end there. A month later, Grant stopped me in the hallway. Same smile, different eyes. He said, "You played that well." I looked at him and said I didn't play anything. I did my job. He laughed, that same little laugh, but it didn't hit the same anymore. Because here's the truth I learned. People like Grant don't lose because someone fights them. They lose because the system they rely on finally sees clearly. And that only happens when someone is willing to stand still in the discomfort long enough to tell the truth out loud. I was underestimated, dismissed, talked over, and yeah, it hurt. But it also sharpened me, forced me to grow in ways comfort never would have. So let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone get shut down because of how they looked, how they spoke, where they came from? Or maybe you were that person. Sitting there knowing you were right, knowing you had value and still being told to stay quiet. Was it justice when I spoke up? Or was it betrayal? Should loyalty matter more than truth? And when someone finally wins against bias, does it mean the system worked? Or that it almost didn't? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them. And if you've lived something like this, tell your story. Someone out there needs to hear it.